This is one of the best ways to really uncover fertility. And as we all know, there's sort of this iceberg on the top of the ocean that talks about fertility, but there's all of these underlying factors that really play a huge role. So, a big piece of what we're going to dive into today is kind of the pillars of what's underneath the ocean, what you can't really see, but what really plays a huge role in fertility in general. So, congratulations on taking the time to join me. I so appreciate that you're here, and I'm so thrilled to have you join me in your evening instead of having a nice family dinner or spending time at the gym tonight. So, if you're here, it tells me that you're struggling with some aspect of fertility, or maybe you're doing some preconception planning and you're really excited to get started. You want to make sure that your hormones are balanced and that everything is working well prior to, which is fantastic. In an ideal world, you would spend about 3 months planning to get your body in optimal condition before you start to get pregnant. And then when you're starting to try, we really look at fertility if you're above the age of 35 and you've been trying for more than 6 months, then we can look at some other alternatives. If you're below the age of 35 and you've been trying for more than a year, then that is a consideration for some infertility or further exploration. So if you're here, you want to hold that baby in your arms, smell their amazing little smell as you hold their skin to skin up against your cheek. The reason why I think it's important to outline very clearly what I'm going to be going over tonight is I'm going to be asking you to make lifestyle changes. I'm going to be asking you to look at your diet, to look at your lifestyle, to look at your nutrition. And if that is not something that you want to change or that you're willing to change, then this probably isn't the one for you. It really takes commitment. It's something that I love to do with you. I love to join in as part of the sort of process on your journey, and I feel honored to walk the path with you. But we will both be frustrated if it's not something that you really want to take the time to do, because you won't see the results that I can guarantee if you're not willing to put in the effort. So, straight out of the gate, please be coachable, please be open and willing to make some changes, and then we can make extraordinary changes together. I'm going to be sharing with you what is possible when you remove the barriers to fertility. So if we're looking at what's prevented you from getting pregnant, whether it is an autoimmune condition, inflammatory factors in your body, whether it's PCOS or endometriosis, these are all huge, huge aspects of fertility. I also want to really focus on the fact that this is a slideshow presentation directed mainly towards women, but men and partners are 50% of the equation. The sperm is 50% of the beautiful aspect that makes a beautiful baby. So I really want to address both partners. The majority of people who join us for these webinars are women. So my slideshow presentation and my promises really are about women, but I want you to know that the partner is really important too. And if you're in a same sex relationship, then we have to look at the sperm that will be contributed or the donation. So please take all of that into account, and knowing that we're going to be looking at some long-term plans here. And what really helps to get you pregnant, to help optimize fertility, prevent you from essentially miscarrying and having a healthy pregnancy, is also what really helps with the body when you want to try to prevent postpartum depression and have successful breastfeeding journey. So all the things that I'm going to be teaching you tonight are going to help you across the entire sort of fertility and motherhood journey. And if you stay until the end, we've got some amazing bonuses. We put together a recipe ebook that talks about eating for optimal fertility, and then we'll get a special discounted consultation with me. And I'm really proud of the toxic top 10 list that we put together. The EPA just came out within the last week talking about some changes that they're making. And I think that this is particularly exciting because if you use Teflon pans, there's some really important factors that are coming into play these days with the way that water is measured, and the PFOAs, which are the essentially chemicals that are in Teflon, are starting to be traced to our water sources. And so The EPA came out recently and talked about how there are nanoparticles in our water and there are no safe limits. So absolutely no exposure to any of this Teflon is safe. And this plays a huge role in fertility. So I really think that we're going to start to see some big changes in our water testing, which is really, really, really promising, because that's a big piece of what we're going to be talking to you about with detoxing some of these chemicals. And that's what's figured in the toxic top 10 list. So moving on, we will be going into some really fun stuff, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I am the founder of Magnolia Wellness. We are an award-winning sort of natural health, naturopathic functional medicine, acupuncture, and Chinese herbal clinic in Orange County. I am the mother of 3 daughters. I have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and I have helped many, many women become mothers. So I have a lot of experience under my belt in the last 15 years, and I'm excited to share a piece of that with you tonight and hopefully continue to work with you going forward. So Magnolia Wellness is a co-op, and I'd like to point this out because as we're going through this process, a lot of what we'll offer is sort of this collaborative plan. So from a functional medicine doctor to naturopathic physicians, we work with hypnotherapy, guided imagery to acupuncture, and a lot of other things, which I think are all really important aspects of fertility, because it's not just about physicality. It is also about the emotional and the stress, the inflammatory process as much as it is the chemicals, but it's also the spiritual journey as well. So I came to this journey after one of my friends in particular, it was my best friend from college, was really, really struggling with infertility. And I have seen so many roller coasters throughout the years, but hers was particularly heavy on my heart because it was before I got into the fertility specialty within Chinese medicine. And I wasn't necessarily able to help her. She was my motivating factor to get into it, because she would struggle to get pregnant. And as soon as she was pregnant, she was elated and on top of the world, and then would miscarry about 7 to 8 weeks in. And it was a devastating aspect for her to feel the loss when she had tried so hard to get to this point and had tried everything, and then feeling like your best friend is devastated and there's absolutely nothing you could do. I felt so incredibly hopeless. And that was at the point that I realized there was something I could do. And I started to pursue a specialty within traditional Chinese medicine and became a master herbalist so I could help other women with their fertility journey. Now, this plays a huge role because we're seeing a ton of environmental toxins. And so while we have the toxic burden load, compiling that with a personal story of my best friend struggling, I was really, really interested in looking into how I could help. Recent studies in Iceland talk about in 2021, there was an 80% increase in stillbirths and neonatal deaths. So I think a huge piece of this is COVID. I think we're seeing a lot of changes in the body, and they've actually proven, and we've done through personal studies on our own, that a lot of sperm and ovarian function has declined for about 3 months post-COVID. And they're rebounding, they're coming back, but I think it's really important to take into consideration a lot of the detox protocols that I'll talk about in a bit. So the reasons for the worldwide decline in male fertility, I think it's really important to take into account. If you look at that second paragraph, the last sentence, obesity, diet, and environmental toxins. Obesity, diet, and environmental toxins. We have control over all 3 of these. And these are a huge aspect of, again, what I'll be talking about. So if you'd like additional data, throw that in the chat box. We can get you some statistics, but this is really a big piece of it. And the big piece surrounding Chinese medicine is because we look at the entire body as a whole. So if you look at the reproductive system, it's profoundly affected by the endocrine system, which is your hormones. It's profoundly affected by the digestive system, because if you're not clearing out these hormones out of your body through your stool, meaning you're constipated or you're not going to the bathroom, your body recirculates these hormones. So you start to accumulate estrogen in the body, and then you become estrogen dominant. And that becomes a huge problem. So when we're looking at the reproductive system in Western medicine, we're often looking at the ovaries, we're looking at a few of the hormones that come into play, and we're looking at the uterus. when we're looking at it from a Chinese medicine perspective or a functional medicine perspective, we're looking at inflammation in the body. We're looking at the methylation processes, which is how your body detoxes. We're looking at how your overall digestive system is working, including the microbiomes, because there's a tremendous amount of research coming out these days talking about the microbiomes of the gut, the skin, and the vagina. And if your body is not conducive to receiving sperm in your vaginal microbiome, you're killing it off before there's ever an opportunity to fertilize. So these are all factors that there's a tremendous amount of research on that are part of the program that we'll be talking about tonight. So just measuring a woman's follicles or looking at the shape of her uterus and giving her drugs is not always going to be successful. Oftentimes we have to look at the root cause of why the infertility is occurring in the first place. And statistically speaking, about 60% of infertility is unexplained. And in my opinion, there's really no such thing as unexplained infertility. We really need to get to the root cause of why that infertility is created in the first place and help the body essentially work backwards and reverse this. And this process generally takes about 3 to 6 months because you're trying to reset the digestion, the hormones, and the detoxification and methylation processes in the body. So my job is to help you feel fully supported through this and help you understand why it's so important. So helping a woman through her fertility journey isn't always just about the positive pregnancy test. In fact, I find these days that that's one of the easier parts. It's staying pregnant and really having a beautiful, healthy pregnancy with a healthy live baby that becomes a beautiful success on my part. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm doing cartwheels and I'm so excited when my clients are telling me that they're pregnant. I had one just recently who was 42. And I was jumping up and down and squeezing her and probably a little too hard. But overall, I think those are the aspects that make this job so much fun and why I love to do it. So preventing postpartum is just an added benefit after the case. This program is different because it's not going to be offering you just drugs. It's not going to be offering you an ovulation window. It's not going to be measuring your FSH, which is your follicle stimulating hormone, or your AMH levels to determine your ovarian reserve. It's my job as a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner to reverse your aging, because age is the number one reason for overcoming infertility. But these days, it's my job to help you reduce inflammation because that plays a huge role in affecting the ovaries. It's my job to balance hormones. It's my job to help with methylation processes and making your digestion is in optimal condition. And then recommending supplements that keep you in optimal condition for both you and your partner. So, any questions so far? Anybody putting anything in the chat room that they need to dig into? Okay, if you've already tried IUI and IVF, or you've had multiple miscarriages, this is still absolutely possible. We can absolutely help you. I often find too that overcoming some of the mental stress around becoming a parent can be a deterrent to pregnancy. And so a big part of our program too is working with visualizations and a lot of really beautiful manifestations around becoming pregnant and knowing that you will be a successful parent, that you will be a beautiful mama. So I always like to ask you, imagine what your life will look like when you're pushing your stroller and you're grabbing lunch with your friends and your baby's staring back at you and cooing into your eyes, and you get the opportunity to look back and think, this is what I've worked so hard for. This moment that feels so simple, meeting my girlfriends for lunch, is everything that I spent months upon months, maybe even years preparing my body for. And it's so exciting because what you're doing now will help your baby for the rest of their life. I mean, the ovaries that are in a baby girl's body are actually going to affect her next generation. So I always love to look at this like preconception planning, healthy pregnancy always helps in the long run for multiple generations. So overcoming infertility, our program is designed to help you feel more confident in your body so that you can feel that baby kick and you can set up the nursery and have your nesting period where you feel really, really fat and you get the swollen ankles and you feel like you couldn't possibly grow another inch and you grow like 3 more, maybe 6, and your like joyous body is so miraculously beautiful because you have literally grown a human. And that is exactly what I'm here to help you do. So I'm really, really, really excited to help you with all of this. And we're getting a few questions in. Will a recording of the webinar be available to us? Yes. A recording of the webinar will be sent out a couple of days after the completion of this. So you are all set and you will absolutely have that. So giving a little bit of background on fertility issues. If your menstrual cycles are irregular, meaning that they're too long, or you have, I would say, a cycle that's more than 32 days, I say 33 because an ideal window is about 28 to 32. So over 32, about 33 days is about the time where we start to look at an extended phase of one of the cycles. And that's what we need to shorten. Again, it's true of the opposite, too short. So less than 26 days. Some women are able to get pregnant in a 24 to 26 day cycle. It's not my ideal. I generally like it to be about 28 because it usually looks like a shortened luteal phase. And at that point, we probably need to look at progesterone and a few other details. It's really important to know if you're ovulating. Obviously, this is very, very basic to a lot of women, but you'd be surprised how many women do not know to check their cervical mucus and to look for the egg white fluid. And even if you are ovulating, how to differentiate that from other discharge, because oftentimes you can determine where in your cycle you're ovulating. Maybe you're an early ovulator, maybe you're a late ovulator. You don't want to be completely dependent upon the ovulation sticks or on an app, because an app is really inaccurate. It's a generalization, and that is not you. You are not a generalization. You are an individual, and your body is totally different than maybe your neighbors. So it's really important that you're looking for your cervical mucus and that you know when you're ovulating so you can hit that window. If you've been trying to get pregnant for over a year with frequent sex, that's a pretty good indicator that we should be looking at some things. And then if you've been able to get pregnant, but you're struggling to keep the baby, I always like to add the piece around the men here and the motility, how fast they swim, the quality, the DNA, the morphology. Those are all factors with male sperm that are really important. And omegas are extraordinarily important for both parties because they reduce inflammation in the body. So if you and your partner are on an omega right now, I would highly recommend that. And CoQ10. And I say these two things not because I want to give you this simple, like, hey, here's a one size fits all approach, because by no means are you looking to have kind of a Band-Aid fix. And I want to get to the root of the problem to really understand why you might not be ovulating. We got a question about, can you have cervical mucus without ovulating? More than likely, the cervical mucus that you are experiencing is not ovulation if you are not ovulating. It could be due to a bacterial infection, it could be a type of vaginosis, it could be an aspect of yeast or fungal infection, but you wouldn't have the cervical mucus that contains any of the follicles without ovulation. So moving to the next one, if any of you have PCOS, it affects about 14% of the population. So it's fairly common, along with a hypothalamic dysfunction. I like to go into a few things that can help because, again, I want to give you some really easy things to start now, even though I really hope that you will do a deep dive and understand why your body is creating the imbalance in the first place. So myo-inositol, phenomenal for PCOS. I highly recommend that for anybody struggling with PCOS. Pick that up and start taking immediately. For anybody with a hypothalamic dysfunction, this is essentially a struggle to regulate your blood sugar, your insulin. I think it is of uber importance to have stabilized blood sugar when you're trying to conceive. There's so many mentors I've had throughout the years that talk about blood sugar imbalance as the root of all evils. It affects like 14 different systems. I mean, if you can't keep your blood sugar stable and you're not drinking enough water, then we're going to struggle to get you pregnant no matter what. So those are the two things that straight out of the gate are really, really, really important to focus on. If your ovaries are not producing much Then the ovary elixir is a fantastic one. Again, this is where we get to reduce the ovarian function. And so you have a better chance of extending your ovulation window and improving your follicles. Too much prolactin levels, I would highly recommend resveratrol. Resveratrol is found in blueberries. It's also found in the grapes, in the skin of the grapes particularly. So not that I am encouraging you to drink a ton of wine, but a little red wine here and there won't hurt. And then endometriosis. This is another very, very common issue. And I think it's really important to offer you some at-home issues if or at-home options if you're struggling with endometrial issues. A lot of times you'll have pain with your period, and assuming it's in the area around the uterus, if it's attached to the intestinal walls or it's moved outside of the uterus, then obviously surgery is the best candidate. But we found really, really, really great results by using cupping on the sacrum. So on the lower back, right behind the uterus, if you can put cups around that time you're experiencing pain to almost act as counter pressure for the uterine pain. That's extraordinarily helpful. And then I would highly recommend finding a pelvic floor physical therapist in your area who can help you with that. And it can alleviate a lot of the pain and issues that you're having. So I think it's really important to ask me questions along the way. If we're talking about any of these things that you have further necessity to dive into, please let me know. I'm going to keep going from an educational perspective and talk about some of the other issues that we'll see. If you have benign tumors or polyps, oftentimes fibroids are a consideration with infertility. There's an amazing Chinese formula called Guizhi. This one really helps to move this stagnant blood out of the uterus. Stagnant blood in Chinese medicine is a function of the liver. And so stress contributes to this, inflammations contribute to this, stuck emotions can contribute to stuck blood. So oftentimes when a woman comes to me and she's having severe cramping issues, or she's having issues around clots or tissue in her period, the first thing I'm going to do is really circulate the liver meridian, the liver qi, the liver energy, because the liver works hand in hand with the blood. And those two can stagnate or coagulate, which is what causes the cramping and the tissues and clots. The things that contribute to that are what I just mentioned with the stress, the emotions, because the liver for women works overtime. It filters our emotions. It filters our caffeine and our toxins. It filters our alcohol. It filters our stress, and it helps regulate our periods. So if our body has a toxic burden on our liver, it's really hard to ask the liver to work for you. And you'll start to notice the change with your metabolism. So one of the things that I love to do is to help women detox the liver and use that pathway to really open things up and get things moving and circulating again, so that you have a little bit more bandwidth to work with to circulate toxins out of your body when you're exposed to them. For instance, the PFOAs in Teflon, or maybe glyphosate. There's so much research coming out on a lot of the toxins we're exposed to environmentally that we may not have control over. But what we do have control over is the way that our body processes those toxins and how we get them out of our system, so that we have the ability to keep our liver working at optimal levels. So I've noticed a few new people joining us. Thank you for signing on. Hello, welcome. If I haven't mentioned this already, please throw your questions in the chat box. Let me know how I can help you personally. I'm here to walk you through this process, and I'm so excited to be able to talk about a lot of the things. We have a question around contraindications to Guizhi. So Guizhi moves a lot of the blood. So if you suspect you're pregnant, we would probably look at alternating the formula a little bit so that it's not going to move the blood. If you have any sort of issues with, if anybody's on warfarin, if they're on baby Tylenol, we'll look at maybe not moving the blood too quickly. But as part of this program, we work with you on a pretty regular basis. So we're aware of a lot of these things, and we like to talk you through them, because with these herbs, there's always considerations to take into account, especially if you're working to try to reduce a fibroid or a myoma naturally. Cervical mucus problems, staying hydrated, avoiding things that dry you out. There's one caveat to that with an antihistamine when you are doing, say, an IUI or trying to conceive, because it can create a little bit of cervical mucus in the short term and then dry you out in the long term. So it's almost kind of like buying from Peter to pay Paul. And so when I talk about a lot of what I like to do to nourish the body, to really give it nutrients and healthy fats, it's a lot of foods that have really good healthy fats. And whether that's egg yolks, and that's chia seeds or salmon, or even organic grass-fed red meat, anything that's like a really good healthy fat will help the body to nourish itself and give back to the fluids. So omegas is really healthy and important in this one. And I talk a lot about seeds and eggs throughout this, but if you have the ability to sprout those, oh, you're a next level, like literally a step ahead. So that makes me really excited for you. Anything you can sprout will help essentially break down the outer coating of the bean or the legume or the lentil. And that acts as a protective mechanism. Imagine like an animal out in its native territory. It has a protective mechanism to protect itself from the onslaught. What I'm hoping that you're looking at is breaking that outer layer so that it doesn't create an inflammatory response in the body. And the way you can do that is just soak it overnight in a bowl of cold water, put a towel over the top of it, and stick it in your fridge. And then in the morning, you open your fridge, they will have like a little crack in the shell, or you'll even see like a little white sprout. Sometimes, depending on the quality of the bean, like I noticed if I buy mine from Trader Joe's, it takes 48 hours, opposed to a health food store that would normally take 24. So the ones that are at the health food store are a little bit more, let's just say whole food based, a little bit more lively. So again, going back to the cases of infertility, if I'm talking about unexplained infertility, I don't believe in that. I don't ever believe that there is a reason. I just don't believe that maybe you have been able to get to the source of the root cause. And that's why I'm here, because I get to help with that. So digging into quick ways to start detoxing, because part of this program, if we look at some of the things that really contribute to overall, one is detox, one is micronutrient deficiencies, and a huge part of this is stress. So quick way to start detoxing is Epsom salt baths. If you can take some of those, I would say 2 to 3 times a week, then you're getting magnesium, which is a naturally occurring mineral that is deficient in our soil these days. And many times people are deficient in magnesium. Magnesium helps you go to the bathroom. It regulates the sleep. It also helps with any sort of restless leg syndrome or muscle cramping because it hydrates the muscles. Another really easy quick fix, it's like a life hack. If you can drink morning lemon water, I will do a glass of morning hot lemon water before I drink my coffee. So I almost feel like it's a 1-to-1 where I'm detoxing before I put the coffee in my body. My coffee is the one thing I won't give up. And so I think there's a lot of things that I can walk the talk on. Coffee is not one of them, unfortunately. And then dandelion tea in the afternoon. Dandelion tea is a fantastic way to detoxify the liver. So are mung beans, actually. Mung beans are the #1 food to detoxify the liver. So if you can get like a quarter or a half a cup of cooked mung beans in your diet, you sprinkle them on your salad, or you can put them in your soup, that's a huge help. But dandelion tea is something that you can just make a big pot of it, put it in a mason jar, set it aside, and you can drink it throughout the day. I will encourage you to continue to drink your normal intake of water in addition to the dandelion tea, because as your body is detoxing, you want to make sure you're giving it water that will help sort of nourish you. And we had questions, how often to do that Epsom salt bath? I would say 2 to 3 times a week, and make it fun too, like a nighttime ritual where you're relaxing before bed. Sometimes I'll put some lavender essential oils in there, and I'll put oil on my hair or a face mask on so that it feels like I can kind of relax, stay in the bath a while so that my body absorbs the magnesium. And then that way it feels like this really beautiful way to incorporate some techniques that give back to me. Does the dandelion tea need to be warm? It does not need to be warm, but I prefer that it's not iced. In Chinese medicine, a huge part of fertility is really getting warmth into the body, because it can, awesome. Somebody just brewed some dandelion tea. Woo-hoo, that's perfect. Yes. Okay, good. So going back to the heat temperature, you'll hear me say, try really hard to get warm foods in. Opt for soups over salads. If you can get warmth into your body, then you're already helping your digestion break down the foods. It's already helping start the process. And by doing so, you're easing the burden on your digestion because it doesn't have to warm things up before it breaks it down and essentially chews it up. So if we drink warm dandelion tea, we're introducing heat. That improves circulation to the body. And because your digestion is in such close proximity to your reproductive organs, the more circulation, the more blood flow, the more warmth we can get into the area, the more blood flow you're getting to your ovaries and your uterus. So I find that extremely helpful. And that goes with water and smoothies. This is one of the hardest parts. I have so many women who drink smoothies first thing in the morning, and they're so bummed when I ask them, like, just let it sit there on the counter for 20, 30 minutes to come to room temperature before you consume it, especially if you're putting ice cubes or frozen berries in it, or even frozen spinach for that matter. Because if you drink it cold, you're shutting down your digestion first thing in the morning, straight out of the gate. And then you're asking your digestion to work from a deficit all day. It's like putting diesel into a gas engine. It's not good. And you'll see so many of the really, really old traditional Chinese medicine who will, the old Chinese medicine practitioners will recommend wearing Ugg boots or really heavy socks and keeping your tummy covered. So I'm totally dating myself here, but back in high school when we were listening to Britney Spears and wearing crop tops, which are making a fierce comeback, I think those crop tops, if worn outside of summer months, are really detrimental to the cold that's introduced to the uterus. So that goes on. Don't sit on cold sidewalks or cold curbs either. Okay, moving on. Nutrition deficiencies. So many aspects of poor nutrition create infertility in both men and women. Micronutrients and enzymes, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, these are huge because these are the precursors that nourish our body. And if we can't nourish our own body, how can we nourish a baby? How can we grow a baby if we are working from a deficit? So I think incorporating really, really good food, clean whole foods, trying to do bone broth whenever possible, making sure that you're getting fruits and vegetables so you have lots of fiber and inulin in your diet that acts as a scrubby brush to move things through your intestines. And then vegetable protein as well as animal protein. And I prefer a protein forward diet. So please, please, please consider eating larger amounts of protein than you're normally used to, because that is what is iron rich. It's what builds the blood, and the blood is what helps with fertility. So vitamin B, huge, huge, huge part for homocysteine. This is a really, really important part for inflammation in the body. It also gives you a tremendous amount of energy. Vitamin C is really effective for progesterone. It's also fantastic for the overall immune system. And I always love this. If you can stock up on it before you get pregnant, then you can avoid that cold that usually happens for most mamas in the first trimester. Vitamin D is extremely important. People are seeing a lot of COVID prevention with vitamin D. In fact, the studies have talked about how 90% of the people with COVID were vitamin D deficient. And unfortunately, that's the case for many of us, even though we live in California, because we wear sunscreen. So if there's an opportunity for you to get out into the sun without sunscreen, absorb some of those rays, and really try to supplement with vitamin D where possible, it's really, really important. Vitamin E, it is really good for protecting the follicles. And a lot of these studies are done during IVF, but if we're just looking at a normal natural fertility process, they're just as important. Selenium is massive. This is a Brazil nut. If you can get one Brazil nut a day, you meet your dose of selenium, and it's a really easy way to incorporate food as medicine. Glutathione is something that I've got almost everybody on these days because it really helps open up the liver. And with long-term COVID and vaccinations, heavy metals and environmental toxins, the more we can get the liver to function efficiently, the better off you'll be in the long run. So really, really important overall. My slides are a little delayed here. Give me a second. Okay, so stress. I think this is fascinating, and I'm super excited to talk about this because there's so many aspects of stress that come into play. I always like to talk a bit about how we can reduce our stress levels, because so many of the studies these days, especially with COVID, talk
about how 90% of all American adults are experiencing crushing levels of stress. Anxiety plays a huge role in this, but if you have community, if you have people you can rely on, if you can go for a walk with a girlfriend, it makes such a difference. From a personal level, if you can delegate, if you have the ability to look to other people and ask for help, that is crucial. I can't even tell you how many people I ask for help on a daily basis. And then really digging into the emotional aspects. The trauma and the triggers play a big role in fertility. And I always love to work through this with people because sometimes it can be the hardest part, but sometimes it can also be fun, because I will tell you that once you're pregnant, a lot of these things come up from your childhood. Maybe some of your own mothering things that you want to address before you become a mother yourself. So the earlier you're able to look at these things and the more fun we can make it. I always think, like, I want to do a retreat, a fertility retreat where we just get together and we get to experience all of these beautiful options to healing, but make it super fun and eat really glorious food. And you guys have to give me like a shout out. Is that something that you would ever be interested in? Like, do you think it would be super fun to get a group together? Put it in the chat box. Like, yes. Okay, yes. I keep thinking about this. Like, we could go someplace fun and we could do guided imagery and hypnotherapy. We could do acupuncture and herbs in addition to some of the functional medicine, but at the same time, like maybe over wine, and be able to dig into all of the things that play such a big role in this. Because I've been doing this for a long time, and I think that's what I bring to the table, is it can be fun. It doesn't have to be sort of this dark night of the soul. So breath work and music and all that good stuff. I got so excited, I skipped a slide here. Okay, yes, we got some really good feedback. Okay, I'm gonna have to add that to the list of things to do. Okay, guys, so going back to stress, the reason why I wanna talk about this is there's a couple statistics that I actually wrote down because I wanted to share it with you tonight. Stress creates menstrual irregularity and infertility, but it also can change the receptor function at the cell level. So specifically as it relates to fertility, increased levels of stress really increase the number of progesterone receptors in the endometrium, and it affects the FSH receptors in the ovaries. So what this tells us is that we are affecting the ovaries and the progesterone levels, which is what prevents miscarriage. So if we look at this in an overarching ability to correlate stress to fertility, because there are so many aspects of fertility that are so stressful, I want to give you some pillars to work with. So some of the best mentors that I have ever worked with, you guys can see my face is getting red. One, because I was so excited about that retreat, but two, it's getting really hot in here. So if I look like a tomato by the end of this, I really apologize. Okay, so going back to the pillars, if we talk about some of the things that can help you avoid stress in your life, some of the things that you can look at to really create some coping mechanisms, I want you to look at your life as if it's 4 pillars. And you can take 5 minutes a day, because this has to be realistic. 5 minutes a day to work on your 4 pillars, and you can choose one of those 4. So if you can get outside into nature, some aspect of getting into nature for just 5 minutes a day will reset your nervous system. There's studies that talk about getting off your computer and looking at a green tree, how that resets the brain. So that's one pillar. The second one is some form of movement. This could be sacred movement. It could be dancing in your kitchen. It could be enjoying like a little booty shake before you get into bed. It can be whatever you want. Creativity is the third pillar. And I always like to say, like, you could draw a little frog in a top hat on a napkin, or doodle on a piece of paper. But creativity is so important. If you're making jewelry or you're painting, creativity is creation. That is the energy of creation. That is the energy of creating a baby. So the more you get into that creative energy, the more you find that flow, the more you're actually really supporting the uterus and the ovaries. If you guys ever followed Louise Hay, she was a phenomenal author, and she started Hay House Books. If any of you know, like, give me a hand raise here, because she and Wayne Dyer were one of the first people that I was listening to when I went through a crisis in my life. And it was what propelled me on the path to alternative, to go to acupuncture school. So Louise Hay wrote a book essentially saying you can heal your life. And what she talks about is the ovaries being the center of creation. And if your ovaries are getting cysts, If they're starting to get a decline in function, the best thing you can do is be creative. And that is a huge outlet for your ovaries. So the last thing I will talk about really, oh, yay, good. Some people know Louise Hay. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Okay. So the last thing that I'll talk about is really finding that place for yourself in meditation. And the reason why I talk about meditation is because it's no longer a luxury these days. Meditation is absolutely critical. And if I could ask you to just do a quick meditation with me right now, I would like to show you the fastest and easiest way to get super relaxed. So I'm going to have each of you kind of sit back, close your eyes. We're going to take 3 minutes just to do a quick meditation. And I'm going to have you do a deep inhale through your nose to the count of 4. 2, 3, 4, and hold at the top for 2 seconds. 1, 2. Now exhale out through your nose to the count of 4, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the bottom. This is a simple box breathing technique. Continue doing this as you hear me talking. But as you inhale, feel your body settling into your chair. Try to put your feet on the floor so that you can feel the bones with the balls of your feet really sinking into the ground. Imagine them growing roots that stretch through the floor and connect with the earth and ground you. You're feeling your sits bones, those 2 bones that your butt sits on, really creating an opening there in your perineum. And imagine that like a channel, and it's a root that's going down and connecting. And continue the breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now I want you to place your left hand over your heart and your right hand over your uterus, over your lower belly. And I want you to visualize a little swing set in your uterus. You're going to imagine the soul of this little baby coming in to swing on this swing set, to crawl up the stairs, to reach that slide, to slide down with absolute glee and utter bliss, jumping into your arms and you swinging them around, inviting them into this beautiful home, this sacred playground that you've created for them with a welcome, huge, huge hug and a tremendous amount of love. Take a deep breath and thank your body for all of the amazing things that it does for you on a daily basis, for allowing your heart to beat, for allowing your eyes to see, for allowing you to be able to take deep cleansing breaths, for the 99.9% of things that your body does for you every day that we don't even have to think about. Those 99.9% of the things are what I want you focusing on every single time you start to feel your heart getting a little heavy. Every time you start to feel like your body might be failing you, or that it's not working like it's supposed to, or when you're looking at Instagram and you see someone's perfect life, I want you to focus on the 99% of things that your body does so well. And I would love it if you'd open your eyes and you'd share with me in the chat box if there's any of those pillars that speak to you. What can you see yourself doing in the next week? Are you going to get into nature? Are you going to start a quick meditation practice? Are you going to have fun and make sure you get out and go bowling or go do cartwheels on the lawn? Nature, yes, yes. Okay, great. Yes, delegation. Okay, beautiful. Yes, awesome. Setting boundaries, I think, is so important too. I think that the more we can all look into ways that we protect our energy and we stay true to ourselves, it's so helpful for really conserving that energy. So staying off the news and avoiding anything that is even remotely negative right now is really helpful. Hi, Megan. So happy. Yes, meditation. Beautiful. Okay, great. And having fun, because again, that energy of fun is around creation, right? And the more you can stay in that creation, the more you can manifest exactly what you want. So, have any of you found this content valuable? Is there anything here that you think you'll be able to take home and share with your partner or bring into your daily life? Give me a yes or a high five. I want to see some of those in the chat box. If you feel like that, okay, awesome. Hi, Larissa. Hi, I'm so glad you're here. Good. Yes, awesome. Absolutely. So valuable. Okay, I'm really excited that you guys have actionable steps. And that was my main goal today, because it's so important that all of you have things that you can take home. So I'm going to dig into additional details. You'll be getting follow-up emails that will go into the consultation. My consultation is usually around $200 with the additional gifts. We're looking at close to $300, and we're offering and a consultation, if you want to work with me one-on-one to dig into some of your root causes and get to the bottom of it, a pretty significant discount. So as part of the initial consult, we'll go into the questionnaire and the consultation, which is really important because that helps us identify if this is your digestion, if it is your methylation pathways, if it is inflammation, hormone, endocrine, pancreas, stress, all of those factors. We go into the detailed health history, a lifestyle and nutritional review. So this will be really customized to you, and then go into some of the root causes of why you may be experiencing infertility. I think it's also important to consider lab recommendations. So if you have labs, please bring those to the consultation so we can review them together. Oftentimes what I find is that the labs covered by insurance will not give you a thorough overview. So for instance, thyroid. A thyroid panel at a general practitioner's will often include TSH levels. If you can get your general practitioner to run a full thyroid panel that includes antibodies, T3, reverse T3, T4, all of those, it's a huge indicator for your fertility, particularly the antibodies, because there is a huge correlation with anybody whose body is producing antibodies, which is a precursor to Hashimoto's, an autoimmune disease. And there is so much research these days talking about how that affects fertility. So those are the things that I really love to get into as part of all of this. I think I'm going to answer the questions and dig into the chat box after I get through this aspect, so I haven't forgotten about you. I just want to show you exactly what this will incorporate and what the value is for the overall consultation. So we're offering this entire package for $97. And I'm really passionate about this, guys, because we're seeing a lot more environmental toxins these days. PFOAs with the EPA is a prime example. So this is what this screen will look like. If you sign in, we're putting it here in the chat box. If you can click on the chat box, you can see the link to check out. That's exactly where you can sign up for this. If you have any questions, please let me know, but that chat box is going to have the information to sign up for this initial consultation. So my goal to work with you is to identify the root causes and the barriers to why you're not getting pregnant, create a personalized approach for you, avoid any failed cycles. If you will be doing IUI or IVF, we work directly with you and potentially your doctor. There's a lot of doctors who aren't necessarily allowing acupuncturists or herbalists into the clinic these days. So we're going to be teaching you how to do ear seeds and a lot of the acupressure points that will really help boost the fertility rates by about 50%. Because you are spending so much money with IUI and IVF, it's really important that we look at some of the other factors before going into these really expensive cycles. So if you have questions and want to drop any of those in the chat box, please let me know. But I always like to offer this as 100% money back guarantee. If you feel like after our call together that we haven't dug into the root cause of what your specific needs are and this hasn't been the customized treatment that you were looking for, I'm happy to offer you a 100% refund. I'm pretty confident in my ability to help people. I've been doing it for a long time now, and I'm pretty good at it. So if I have questions or I don't know something, I have a huge team of people and a fantastic amount of resources to get those answers. So I'm on a mission to transform lives and really help women experience the joy of motherhood. I can tell you firsthand, it's a miraculous experience, and I am 100% confident that there are issues underlying infertility that can play a huge role when those are resolved to help you grow some healthy babies. And I just wanted to share one of my success stories. This was a woman who we worked with for quite a while, and she says, Angela, there's no sufficient way to thank you for all the ways you've helped me in my new family. For me personally, you gave me a calm, safe space with good energy to take a breath for the crazy ride I was on trying to start a family. Your experience and professional expertise, along with your gentle, empathetic demeanor, really contributed on a weekly basis to my overall health and well-being. I'm certain that influence positively impacted my ability to get and stay pregnant. Your continued treatment throughout my pregnancy keeps me remarkably comfortable and again gave me quiet time to focus on positive energy and outcomes. Though A came fairly early, she was and continues to be very active and healthy. She's now an energetic 16-pound little one full of personality. She runs around and gobbles solid food and talks to us as though we understand every sound. She's so much fun, and we are so grateful every day for her, even on sleepless ones. There's no doubt that you are an incredibly valuable part of our whole process. Thank you so much for everything. So I hope that this is your success story too. And I love sharing these aspects with all of you. So if you would like to jump on, feel free to check out that link. I am going to just check into the chat box right now. If you guys have questions, my email is shared in the chat box. You can send me any emails, and then the fertility checkout is available there to sign on for the initial consultation. So if you have other issues that are specific to lab testing, again, please bring your labs to the initial consultation. So if you're experiencing difficulty getting pregnant, if you want to identify the root cause of your infertility, you want to prevent miscarriage, have a healthy pregnancy, deliver a healthy baby, and prevent postpartum, then I can guarantee you 100% refund if you are not happy. And going forward with this initial consultation, we have the ability to spend some extra time together. My initial consultations are usually about a half an hour. I'm offering this as a 45-minute consultation to really be able to dig in deep. I would love to continue to work with you, and we will have that option to continue to work together and get you pregnant if you would like it. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining me again. This was so much fun, and I can't even tell you how much I appreciate all of the participation, the feedback. I'm going to jump into the chat box and answer any additional questions now. Thank you. Good. We got some great ones. Awesome. Okay. Yes, it was so valuable. Thank you. I love to hear that. Good. Okay. Well, enjoy your 4 pillars. Meditation, getting into nature, go have fun. And thank you again so much for joining us today. Please, please, please reach out to me with any questions. And again, if you have any desire to join me for a one-on-one consult, I would love to help you. Any other vitamins recommended for men other than CoQ10 and omegas? It really depends on what the men, what their issue is. If they have any issues with sperm motility or morphology or DNA, each of those have separate supplements that I recommend. They definitely need to be on a multivitamin that includes vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, Bs, those types of things. So you want to make sure you get a really good multivitamin that helps them as well. Any other questions? Okay, Larissa, thank you so much for your question. Second vitamin recommended for men was CoQ10. So omegas and CoQ10 are fantastic for men. And again, if you guys sign on for the consultation, please bring your partners because I would love to talk to them as well. It's always so much easier when they hear it from a professional rather than a nagging partner, because you don't have to do this alone. It doesn't have to be all on you. Again, partners are 50% of the equation. And so when they hear from me, it's really important that you take your omegas, one, because that helps reduce inflammation. So it's going to help with your joints and your weekend warrior attitude, but it's also fantastic for fertility. And then they hear from me like, please cut back on alcohol, please cut back on smoking weed, at least for the next 3 to 6 months while you're trying to conceive. Then they hear it from a professional, not from their wife, and it doesn't have to be a source of conflict. So Please bring your partners, come join me, and I look forward to seeing you at the consultations. And thanks again for joining us tonight. Have a beautiful night. Bye-bye.